Hey friends, check it out. Well, first off, you're gonna see a car. My oldest got his first car, so it's been a fun day of detailing. Sorry, the sun's in my eyes. Detailing it and getting it all fixed up. But we have a tower, and then we have a trellis tower. So today I'm gonna take you guys on a full garden tour. We're gonna talk all things towers and trellises, discuss some of the problems going on with some of my towers. Just so you guys know, when you see some of these things, like, problems are normal. We're gonna have them, and I can explain some of the reasons why they're happening. And I'm gonna show you guys some of the permaculture food forest and just where we're at. First car, exciting. Mid-June. I'm also going to show you guys the mushroom grow tent and where we're at with that, because I've learned a lot and it's been a really great just reminder of what it's like to be at the beginning stages of learning how to grow something. So let's dive in. Okay, so here on our property, I have landscaped in food as like a permaculture landscape or an edible landscape. It's all medicinals and food, a couple of decorative things, but mostly medicinals and food. And then along the forest line, so this actually drops straight down behind here. We're sort of on a ridge of a mountain. And this I let grow with wild berries, so it's naturally blackberries, wine berries, and then I have been adding in more commercial varieties. So we might be able to find some of the commercial varieties I've added in, and I just keep putting little sprigs of different varieties, let them get established. I am also planting out an edge food forest, so we will have our berries, but on some of the areas where there's a little open space, I'm putting in fruit trees along these edges. Nut trees like macadamia nuts grow really well here. So I'm using this edge to grow food. It's naturally a food forest, but I'm just ramping that up by adding peaches and nectarines and things that'll grow well in the forest edge. Apples, not so much. Pears, those need a little bit more space, but cherries, wild cherries, I'm planting along here. Nectarines, peaches, rock fruit are pretty durable, and actually being close to other plants helps if we have an unexpected frost and they've already bloomed. It just keeps them a little bit more insulated, which increases our chances of not losing the fruit. So the blackberries are close to ready. There's quite a few black ones. And I will tell you, like, maybe 10% of the ones I get are really sweet. They go from being pretty bitter to sweet, and then they get eaten up. They go from sweet to disappearing because something eats them, or just falling apart really quickly. So if they are firm to the touch, they are guaranteed to be a little bit sour. Yeah, but I still love them. Ooh, something crawling in my foot. I think they're incredible. I'm used to eating them this way. And actually, when they're sweet, they're super mushy. And I don't really like them that way. And they're a good size. So a very good sized berry. So with berries, I come out and harvest morning and night for blueberries. And you saw me harvesting from 2 different trees. Blueberry bushes. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have about 10. But the 2 I'm harvesting from are the most prolific. Those are the ones that are producing the most food at this point. The others are still getting established. You want to put your blueberries in the fall. Make sure they're super moist. And I get a lot of blueberry questions on social media. People ask me what's wrong with their blueberries. 90% of the time, it's because they're planted in the middle of an empty field with 100% sun. Blueberries, they tell you blueberries like full sun, but I have never been able to grow them in full sun. And if you look at a blueberry in nature, it is in an open field. We have them wild here all over the place, and they will be where there's been a fallen of trees and it's clear, but that area is still surrounded by other trees. So it's a filtered sun situation. I have never seen a blueberry just sitting out in the middle of an open field that's really thriving unless it has a very consistent irrigation system and is being farmed. So if you want to grow them in your garden, I suggest mine do best on the north facing side, where the south facing sun is our house, and so they get the north side of the sun, and they do amazing in that particular spot. And it's pretty much about 6 hours of sun a day, but it's a nice gentle sun. If you turn the corner of our house and it's more east-west, so west facing sun, I have had a hard time keeping them alive there. I lost 2 last year because they got burned up, and it's not even that sunny over there. It's just that sun, the particular sun that hits them in the hottest part of the day was just too much for them. So filtered sun, I say they like gentle sun. Lots of sun, but gentle sun. So if you could stand out there for 6 hours and be okay, then the blueberries will too. Maybe that's a good example. All right, so as we walk along here, you're gonna see my Vigo garden bed. I love these beds. I didn't get the beds in time. As you can see, that's the edible landscaping through there, and I've been expanding that this year, and I've been real happy with what I have in there. But as you get further to this side, it starts to get weedy and messy, and this is where those raised beds are going, and I just didn't make it before summer, so we're gonna work on this all summer with the goal of having them planted for the fall. And that's okay. Whatever you can do, do the thing you can do. So these are all blackberries. Different stages. These are going to be less ripe because we get more sun. So as we come down here, which is a great thing to remember when you're planting food, the more sun, the faster they're going to ripen. As we move into the shade, they're going to ripen a little bit later. And what that does is it extends your harvest season out longer. Gives you things earlier, gives you things later in the season. Okay, now we're getting into the wine berries. So this is a wild raspberry that grows here. Very, very popular. I call them wine berries. I honestly don't really know what they're called. This is a small one. They are incredibly delicious. Very seedy, but in a good way. So I don't know how to describe like a good seedy way. Just listening to the animals. So these kind of jump around year to year where they grow. So I just have to go hunt them out. And you can see they're all back in the forest there. I leave those, there's a trail here. So I will go down this trail to get some of the ones along the trail, because this is a huge patch this year. And actually, if I had to guess, that's probably a bear trail, because we didn't make this trail. So that's interesting. But I'll walk down here, but I don't mess with the thick brush stuff. I just leave that for the animals and harvest on the edge. So we've got some blackberries here. And I don't really have a goal aside from I like to eat a cup full of blueberries every day and at least a cup full of these berries. And then I will put some in the freezer for smoothies, but I don't make jams or anything. I'm not a big jam person. So you can just see how vibrant they are. They literally just pop in your mouth. They're so good. They're like a pure, sweet juice. It almost just disintegrates into juice in your mouth. So good, I want more. Those are just starting to ripen. If I didn't have you guys with me, I could get definitely a handful if I went meandering in here, but I have no shoes on and I have you guys with me. This area didn't have as many this year come up, so I actually put in some grocery store varieties, but they haven't done anything yet. And I will show you one thing here. Actually, they did do something. This is eaten off the top. So is that one? All of these are eaten. And it's because the animals like, it's deer eating them, I'm assuming. The animals like the grocery store varieties. I'm calling them grocery store varieties, but more like commercial food that you would get, like a raspberry, traditional raspberry. I think these were a blackberry. For whatever reason, the wildlife, maybe because it has different nutrients. Okay, so my phone died, so I went and grabbed a green juice. I'm going to talk a little bit about this and what's in it and how we can turn our failures into wins when it comes to the towers. But what I was saying is this particular variety, I put this in last early spring, and it came up and I was like, cool, it took, because you know sometimes it doesn't take. And this was the one that the deer were eating last year as well. They don't eat the others. You're going to notice when we go by all the other varieties, nothing is topped off like this. So for whatever reason, they just like this particular variety. They're eating it about the same height throughout this area. And the cool thing is these particular plants, they spread like peppermint. They're spreading under the ground. It has a name, right? But I don't know the name of it, how it spreads. But they spread underground. So even though we're losing the tips, these are shooting out to the sides, and eventually we will get a harvest off of these. Even if the deer continue to consume this one section, these will spread to another part. I'll show you something really cool that I found recently that is something I planted, and they're just incredible. And it is this right here. This one's a small one, not very impressive, but these are black raspberry. So it looks like that. And black raspberry are really, really good. They're a little bit tart. That one was anyway. Let's try this one. Oh. Okay, and so when you eat a raspberry, this one's a little smaller. I harvested some the other day that were pretty big, which was nice. Which was nice to know they can get that big. These are a little bit smaller. And these aren't super established yet. I only see them a couple of feet, maybe 5 feet here. So they're just getting established, but these are all vines to it. You guys probably can't see that, but there's big, strong new vines coming. So these made it. So raspberry, you pop out the center. You don't eat this little part. Like you do a blackberry, you just pick the blackberry and eat the whole thing. With the raspberry, you pop out this little seed casing, and these are great. We have wild black raspberries here, and I can probably show you guys some of those, but they are tiny. These are more of a grocery store. This one's small too, but the ones I've been harvesting have been like something you could buy at a grocery store, pretty substantial in size. So good. And this theme just carries on. These are all berries all the way around the property. Utilizing any edge we can to have access to food here. Now, as we go to the other side, you'll notice there isn't a lot, well, you probably can't tell from the video, but there isn't food, brambles, berries growing in this area. And I can try to introduce them here, but the fact that they're not here leads me to believe they wouldn't thrive. So I haven't bothered with that, but this might be somewhere I could put like a pawpaw tree or something shade loving. So when I'm growing wild food like this, that's what I'm looking for. What does like it there? And are there any fruiting things in that family or that are similar to that type of plant in the environment it likes that might grow there? And that saves you a lot of headaches than trying to force something, like going back to planting the blueberries in the middle of an open field. It's just a painful experience when they're not growing and they're not producing. So trying to get the plant as close to its natural state, even if it's not a natural, like heirloom wild variety, is the key. All right, and then we kind of loop around. This theme follows all the way down our driveway. This is a cherry tree that the deer love. See, they're munching them right off again. But it's starting to get out of their reach, and so I think we'll be fine, and we're gonna make it. That's a service berry tree. So they're out here, that's a pear tree. Those are all blueberries. So this will be where the raised beds are and more fruit. All right, and before we go take a look at the towers and the mushrooms, I'm just gonna breeze over. I've got like a Vigo garden bed with potatoes in it. It's over by the chicken coop. I'm not going to get too much into that yet. I would like to dive into raised bed content because I'm doing hugelculture in them, and I'm not buying compost after this first year. So there's going to be sustainable raised beds. But what I want you to understand about the permaculture landscaping, what I'm going to show you, is it is incredibly overgrown and looks really rough right now. And that is important to understand. And there are some towers that look the same. So plants, I talk about this before, and my goal is always not to say plant this here. Sometimes people say, I want to know like the exact layout of everything to plant, where to put it on the tower, when to do this, when to do that. And I can't do that because these are living things that are going to react to your environment differently than mine. Seed to seed plants act differently. They have characteristics and they have character traits that you can get familiar with and kind of work with those the more you get to know plants. But they are living things and they do what they want. But they do go through cycles and we reach a peak. And so my goal is always to help you understand plants, because then you can make it work. And you understand them a lot of times through failing with them. And that's how I learned over the last 20 plus years, is all the failures have led me to really understand how plants grow and what they don't like and things like that. But that's my goal, is to help you guys understand plants so that the mysteries of these things aren't a mystery. So when things come up with plants, it helps to kind of close that gap of information so you can understand what might be going on with that plant. So in my permaculture landscaping, everything is going to flower. It's mostly medicinals and berries. The berries are in high bloom right now, so berry bushes look great. Everything else, herbal, is either little and starting over, or it's going to flower, which is amazing. We want them to go to flower because that's where we get our medicine. But when they do that, they look out of control and a little bit unruly and crazy. And then I harvest and we get the things we need from them. And then I chop everything back and it starts over. And in a month, it looks beautiful again and young and vibrant. And I'm going to show you some towers that look young and gorgeous and no blemishes, because they're in that beginning stage. And I'm going to show you some that are in the end of their life and what that looks like too. So hopefully you can see the difference and see that it's normal. The growth patterns of plants are normal. All right, first off, this is Oscar and he's adorable, right? So you're going to see some plastic. I put a couple of trees in. I videoed that, the tiny trees. I put the last ones in, and I didn't clean up after myself. I also put in some new medicinals. So this is valerian root, St. John's wort, self-heal, toothache plant. There's a bunch of kale growing in here. There's blueberry bushes in here. This is aronia berry blooming. Just lots of things. This right here is my Jerusalem artichokes next to a blueberry, next to comfrey, next to a bunch of weeds. This right here is wild lettuce. I'll be making a video. You turn that into medicine. It's a sleep tincture and pain tincture. Then I have another tiny tree. Over there's disaster, but we have grape leaves and potatoes. So everything is either weedy or at its peak, like this fennel. This fennel is going to seed. It looks kind of unruly. There's one over there. It's taller than me at this point, and that's good because I need the fennel seed to cook with, and I grow this for fennel seed. I feel like every day there's more information coming out, but there was a recent thing that came out on all, it's a particular chemical they spray on spices, and almost every spice in the grocery store has this particular thing sprayed on it, and you know, it's known to be harmful. So growing your own spices, which a lot of them come from the seeds, is a great option. So that's what the fennel's for. So everything's just big. Now the weeds, I don't mess with those, and I've talked about this before. We want our ground covered. And if you take all the weeds out and you don't put something else on top of it, like straw or wood chips, then it just dries up, especially here. It goes right back to being just terrible clay. So the weeds are protecting, and I also have peppermint in my garden, which is a big no-no, but the peppermint and the weeds are protecting the things that I need them to, and so I'm using it as a ground cover. And then as these areas get established, I clean them up and make them look a little bit prettier. But that's just part of the permaculture process, which is nice because it takes the pressure off of having to worry about weeds. And eventually it looks like this, which to me looks really nice and kind of managed. This is a hydrangea. It's gigantic. It will be mulched after it blooms. It's there to create shade and climates for things like this little tree that's getting established. That's another tiny tree. We have the mulberry. That's another berry that I go harvest from daily. You can see the mulberry. Where is it? There's the mulberries in there. And this right here is elecanth. So elecanth is blooming. It's in the sunflower family. It's a medicinal. You use the roots. But just to give you a perspective, it's maybe 1.5 times the size of me. It's gigantic. Half of it's fallen over. It's gone bonkers. But that's okay. It's probably gonna fall over and break any second. But I needed it to bloom to really set the roots to make them useful for medicinals. And this is one I'll be using at the end of the season. Not yet. I'm gonna cut it back. It'll regrow again. And then at the very end of the season, I will harvest it for the roots, spread some around so I can plant it somewhere else because it's a beautiful plant, and just keep going with that theme. And eventually, like this area, I think looks really pretty. Flowers, food, it's all food and medicinals. That's sorrel. But to get there, sometimes it's got to look a little messy. Here's our tiny pear tree we put in. I moved my rosemary out of the tower and put it in the ground. I have no idea if it'll work. I also did that with lavender. Lavender's been there for 3 months and is still there. This is wild bergamot and bee balm. It all looks sad. It's got some powdery mildew, but we need those blooms. And once it blooms, then I can use it for what I need to use it for and make the tinctures and things I need to make. And then we'll cut it back, straight back to the ground. And it grows again, starts all over. Same with this. This is an unruly catnip that's about to bloom and is blooming. The wormwood, out of control, looks terrible, blooming. Powerful, powerful stuff though. Primrose. So this is when everything just looks tired. But check out those apples. Okay, this right here is one of my home towers, and it's gonna be going in the garage soon. So I'm just letting some things finish off, and I already have new starts ready to go. So we've got a granate cabbage, Chinese cabbage, lots of lettuce, watercress. Some of these are small, and I'll probably just move them to another tower or eat them by the time we move it in. Basil. These are Emiko cabbages. They can go a little bit longer. They can definitely get a little bigger. We've got lots of empty grow ports because I just want to finish this tower off and transfer it over. I'm waiting on the kohlrabi. There's a few of those. They're about a week out from being ready. And then this is a cone cabbage. Actually, this ended up being a Sapporo giant, which is why it never took shape. These are a gigantic cabbage that I was growing to see how big the leaves would get and just totally forgot that's what it was. But that's why it looks so crazy. There are plants that take a really long time. Beets, celery, cabbages. What else takes a really long time? Tomatoes take a long time and we're going to talk about tomatoes because there's some confusion there too, to kind of get to where they're going to get. And then you may have green tomatoes and then they take a really long time to ripen. And I can talk about that and why when we get over there. So there's just some things. Parsley takes a long time. They just take a long tail. For me, it takes a while to get it established. So that when we interval plant, which I talk about that a lot, it kind of closes that gap so it doesn't feel like, and also having more than one tower. It's really hard, unless you're really good at interval planting, to feel like things are growing fast when you have one tower. And I can assure you, they're growing faster than they do in the soil typically. Now things grow a little bit slower indoors. They are growing. It just, when you're watching one tower and you're kind of paying attention to it, it's like watching water boil. It seems like it's taking forever. Most gardeners go out, put their stuff in the ground, and it seems like it comes up so fast if you're watching those videos of like homesteaders. And some things may actually come up faster and be faster to grow at their peak season. And that's kind of the difference between tower gardening and soil gardening. If I were to put lettuce in a bed in early spring, in a raised bed, it can come up so fast, maybe even faster than my towers. And then we're going to harvest it and it may regrow again, and then it's going to bolt as it starts to get hot. And the towers were sort of turning things over consistently. And it's just a little bit different process. They say things grow 3 times faster on a tower. I would say that's not accurate. I think things grow pretty consistent to the way things grow. I think things grow in the amount of time that they are required to grow. The difference is we can grow those things out of season, we can expand the seasons, we can stretch the seasons, we can plant earlier, we can plant later, we can consistently plant where usually gardens burn out and you have to pull everything out and start over. So all that to say, having more than one tower and interval planting really helps, and being really mindful of what you're planting. Plant a lot of fast growing things, and then if you do plant the slow things, you just have to go the distance with them or be okay pulling them out. If, like, I feel like these cabbage are just getting so big, I don't know if I want to wait any longer. And there's a ton of leaves on there. I could make an entire jar of sauerkraut with the 3 cabbage behind you guys. So, which is probably what I'm going to do because I'm tired of waiting. But don't give up just because something isn't growing. Doesn't seem like it's growing and it's just sitting there. Sometimes things are just sitting there. Sometimes plants grow and then they stall, but they're not stalled. They're just doing something else. They're developing stronger roots to prepare for the next phase, or they're preparing to flower if it's something that needs to flower. So they do go. I just had some zucchini do this. They were booming and then they just went dormant for a second and now they're booming again. All right, so this is just a tower that needs to be turned over. The broccoli is not going into premature bolting. It's not premature bolting, which I thought it would in this heat. So I'm just letting it go. But like this kale's gotten long and leggy. It's time. This pepper, I need to harvest all of these. I'll keep the pepper going. This is leaf miners. Don't worry about them. If you see leaf miner damage, by the time you see it, the leaf miner is probably already gone and it doesn't matter anyway. They are just not harmful. It's not something to worry about. I've got a new okra in here. I've got my chamomile. So I've got my sage. So it's a combination of a couple of things I'll be keeping, but I want to take it apart, do a deep clean, and then add all fresh new stuff. So just need to find time to do that. Here are my beets. Beets are going to set leaves, and then those leaves are going to get old and die. If you eat them before they do this, they're edible. These are not great now. And then they set off new leaves. And then these are gonna get nice and green, and this is what you wanna eat. Get rid of those. And then they're gonna put off new leaves that are even bigger. And this process continues until they have gigantic leaves and until you harvest it. And it's a nice sized beet right now. I'll probably harvest that pretty soon. They take a long time, beets. My celery tower is so sad. It has not liked the heat and several of them are bolting. So it needs to go inside. So I'm at the salvage point. This is celery gone to seed. I'm gonna collect the seeds so they're hydroponically adapted. But you can see this one died. It was going to seed and it just gave up. There's a lot of babies in here. So when I get it inside, I will divide them up and try and get all of the babies out, and I'll just juice some of these bigger ones. I think we can salvage it. It just couldn't tolerate the heat. I thought it could, and it could not. Lesson learned. I cleaned this one up the other day. This one was out of control. It looked so unruly, and now it looks great. So I have baby kale in here, basil, tomatoes. I'm just keeping everything nice and trimmed and managed so that we can grow all of this big stuff together. This was the zucchini I said was doing great, produced so much food for us, and then it just burned out. Now it's producing again. But look, this started way up here and it's all the way down here. So it's doing great. And I like them up top. Someone asked me why, and it's because I can go like this and look underneath them for eggs and for squash bugs. This is squash bugs right here. There's 2 of them mating. We cannot have those. And I don't like to kill things, but they have to go because they will destroy your gardens. So I look for the eggs and I look for the bugs. And that's how we keep those alive for a really long time. Swiss chard, new green beans, more mature squash that's blooming. This one's lower. Another reason I don't like them lower is because this one now is trailing all the way down. More squash bugs. This one's trailing all the way down, and I'm gonna run out of places to put it unless I just keep going around the rim. So they do better if they're up higher. Tomato. I put in new zucchini, young pepper, new zucchini. I'm always preparing for these to burn out and having another one ready to go. This is a cabbage, and it's starting to form a nice cabbage head. It's another one of those cone cabbage. If you notice the difference, this one, now they're different varieties, but still, this is small versus that gigantic thing. That's another reason I think those need to come out. I think they just got so big. They put so much energy into these gigantic leaves that I'm going to be waiting for a nothing burger at the end of the day as far as what it produces. Where this one, I put it in when the season was kind of warm. It grew really quickly, and it's forming a nice cabbage head up there. Okay, this tower. This is a small tomato, like a dwarf. I don't know which kind. Some of the strawberries made it and some did not. And what happened, and I know exactly what happened, and I'll tell you in a minute, is there's parsley. So I'm just filling these in. Some are still dying. Some are doing all right. So I went ahead and used this tower for my watermelon. Here's parsley. And then there's some random things up top. With my strawberries, what I did, I was about 2 months too late. So I went from bare root into the tower. And I should have gone bare root into a hydroponic rock wool soaked in hydroponic solution, let them establish their hydroponic roots for probably 6 weeks before ever putting them out in the towers. And I didn't. So I'm letting the ones that are thriving thrive so that I can get those established to move forward. But that's where I went wrong. And so lesson learned, earlier in the season's better if you're gonna go bare roots. And I'll work on my strawberries and share with you guys as I learn. As far as what's up here, I've just been putting random things in. I put a bunch of cucumbers in. Not yet. I'll have a ton of starts I can show you guys. But it's okay. Sometimes we're not getting a lot of rain right now. And even if we are, it's okay if a little bit gets in there. And we're just letting this kind of do its thing. And as I find things I want to stick in here, I am. I didn't want to stick any lettuce because it was so hot that I was going to grow all the lettuce inside is really what happened. But then I got the idea, why not cucumbers? and then maybe some green onions or something that's super hardy. All right, this tower. This is a tower of tomatoes that are past their peak. And we've got a lot going on here. First off, this variety, I could clean this up, but there's no point. This is an indeterminate variety, meaning, or determinate variety, excuse me, meaning it is going to set the amount of fruit it's going to set and it's done. So for me to waste time clearing all of this and cleaning it, it doesn't make any sense. It's not harming the plant to look like this. All I'm doing is waiting for this fruit to ripen, harvesting it, and then the whole thing's coming out. So we're just in the waiting phase. See that white moth? That's a bad guy. Those are the ones that lay eggs on your brassicas, and then you get 1,000 caterpillars hatch and they eat your food. I use arbor to protect against those. It like makes their stomachs upset and takes care of the caterpillars. It's necessary to either put netting over brassicas or do some sort of biological like that, or you'll lose everything to those white moth caterpillars. So with these tomatoes, that's the thing. So if you grow tomatoes indoors, you're gonna get tomatoes if you grow the right varieties. But a tomato indoors is never gonna taste as amazing as a tomato outside, because tomato fruit the flavor is determined by temperature, sun, and those kinds of things. So when we've got nice, warm, sunny days, and then we harvest our food after that nice, warm, sunny day, like towards the end of the sun before it cools off, they have more intense, sweet, amazing flavor. Kale, grown in cool weather that's exposed to some frost, is super sweet versus kale that's grown in the summer that can be bitter. So plants have all these different characteristics. And someone asked me if food tastes better grown hydroponically. Tastes better than the grocery store, absolutely, because in the grocery store they're being sanitized, they're traveling, they're old. Does it taste better than soil gardens? It depends. It depends what's in the soil. Is it nutrient dense or is it nutrient depleted? We're giving our plants everything they need, so they tend to have more flavor because they have all the nutrients intact. But a tomato grown inside is going to taste very different than a tomato grown outside. Even time of day, harvesting these, and even the particular fruit, from fruit to fruit. I harvested one the other day. It was the best tomato I've had in my life. I harvested another one off the same plant almost like inches away, and it was just good. So you never know, and it just depends, if all things come together to make the most amazing fruit. If you start getting into super high temperatures, I think it's like over 90 consistently, pretty warm at night too, like in the 80s, your fruit won't set. A tomato is going to stop setting fruit, meaning it won't flower. The flowers won't turn into fruit. That can happen with peppers in extreme heat too, but that may be going on with your tomatoes. They're not really, even though they're a summer crop, we want them to be ripening in the heat of the summer, like that last month when the temperatures are really high, not trying to set fruit. They need to be done at that point, and then you can start over in the fall. They also, there's this idea, or this, people think that they ripen faster the warmer the temperatures get. It actually can slow the process down the more warm it gets. So if you start to have really extreme heat and you've got a bunch of green fruit, it can actually slow it down a little bit. So just be mindful of that. And tomatoes just take their time. Like some days I come out here, I can easily harvest about 2 pints. And some days I see thousands of tomatoes and I could only harvest 5. And I just can't even believe it with as many as I have. I'm going to show you guys. So I prune them if they are indeterminate and I want them to keep growing. And I'll show you which ones I'm pruning right now. Or if they're early in the season and I need them to be able to survive. We live in a temperate rainforest. We get a ton of rain. These have disease because I put them out here before our last frost. So they were exposed to all that spring rain. And it's just a lot for plants. They get tomatoes. They get diseases when there's a lot of water. Now, some of them are indeterminate, keep getting that backwards, meaning they're gonna keep growing and keep growing. And I may keep those if I can clean this tower up in a way that doesn't affect them. Right now I can't even tell which ones are which right now they're just so intertwined, it's not even worth messing with them. And the rains have stopped here, so the disease is actually drying up a little bit. My hanging basket varieties and my heartbreaker varieties, they're just huge producers. And the leaves are dying off. The fruit is fine. It's not affected by that. These are some indeterminate varieties, so they continue to grow new, pretty. See, these are so beautiful and blooming, and they're pretty, versus down here, because that's old growth and this plant's on its way out, and these are just getting started. So lots of stuff going on here. It's hard to manage a tower that has, this is 18 different varieties of tomatoes, some determinate, some indeterminate. It's really hard to manage a tower if you're gonna go that route. My goal was not to let these keep growing, although they look so beautiful. If you look at the top, I might try and salvage them, we'll see. But all sorts of different varieties. We've got different size tomatoes. We've got different colored tomatoes, different shapes. Look at them. Just incredible. So a little bit of food to eat every single day. That's always the goal. These are Brussels sprouts. I have 2 Brussels sprouts tucked in here. They're gonna start producing soon. Brussels sprouts, the food part grows on the stem. I have a squash tucked up there, some green onions, another squash right here. Well, we lost a bloom. Here is where we get younger towers that just look better, but these also have some plants on them that are a little bit aged. So I've got peas that are kind of on their way out, and they're small, and if you look, this is new growth. And so I'm not taking them out yet because we cooled off again and then they started to get happy, but their peas, the pea pods are coming in super small because they don't like this heat. So like, that one's a bad example. It should be bigger than that. This one turned into peas. I could actually plant these. So they may be on their way out and just kind of wait and see. The endive is ready to be harvested. Parsley's just getting started. We have squash. This is yellow squash. This is my aloe. I moved one outside to see if it would be happy. Look at how terrible it looks. It does not like being outside in this climate, so I'll move that back in tomorrow. We have lots of green beans. Green beans are doing great. We've got young green beans in. There's a cabbage. Starting to form a head. This is not going to be much. I was using it for lettuce cabbage wraps because I really like purple leaves for cabbage wraps. That'll come out and get replaced with something. So this is a good example of some young things getting started, some brand new things, some things on their way out, a good interval planted tower. Now if you do this, you got to be ready to rip these out, and you can eat the like new growth, put it in salad. It's really tasty. It tastes like peas. And then just get rid of the plants and have something else ready to go, because these are not looking like they are going to be great any longer. I did get a huge harvest off of those. That was the patio pride. This is stinging nettle. Some of it got burned up because my tower got turned off. So that's why some of the leaves look bad. It does amazing. It's flowering. This tower, this is supposed to be my tomatoes to make all our sauces, and I think I'm failing. So I did ground cherries. A ground cherry is kind of like a tomatillo. This is a ground cherry here. Tastes like a pineapple, and a pepper had a baby. There's a bunch of them. They're very prolific. You eat them once they fall. Really love them. Loved it. Grew them. I grew them year one, and they're very, very prolific. And then I just thought I didn't really like them. I kind of got sick of them. And then I started to miss them, and this year I was craving them. So that'll happen too. If you expose yourself to new foods, I always hear people telling, like homesteaders and gardeners saying, grow what you eat, and they're growing like 8 things and just a ton of it. I disagree with that. I say grow a lot of the things you eat. If you have a tower of 28 grow ports, designate 24 to the things you love, and then maybe try 4 of things that are new, because the more we get exposed to new things, then the more our bodies will start to crave them. And I think diversity is hugely important. So I fall in a different camp with that. But what happened with the tomatoes, they're just not producing like I thought they would. So I went ahead and started another tray. I have time because these will grow fast. They're paste tomatoes. They're the ones I needed to make sauces and things to can. And they are also getting some disease early for this season. And I think it's because they're an heirloom variety and they're just not able to tolerate our rainforest. They'll be fine. I just don't think, I'm going to show you, they're going to give us enough food. Oh, tomatillos. I forgot, sometimes these things can get 7 feet tall. So they are literally gigantic. I'm gonna have to tie them to the tower or put another cage on here, another ring. But they are coming quickly. They're producing amazing. I'm gonna be able to put up a ton of salsa. Then the paste tomatoes, I had 12 of them in here and they are producing. I'm keeping them nice and pruned to keep disease down and to just really keep an eye on these. And they are, I don't know if they're determinate or indeterminate, but every time you get a sucker, which is kind of a growth in between like the elbow, this is a sucker. Let me see if I can find a better one. This right here is a sucker. So you've got your two elbows, your stems, and then you've got this new growth. All of these put off fruit. These are fruit producing suckers. So we don't take those off. So I definitely have a lot more growth that can happen. Some of these ended up not being paste tomatoes. I did have some extra tomatoes of some sort. I think this is a Dr. Witchy's tomato, but I don't know. We'll see. I went ahead and started more because I just don't know if this is going to be enough to can. But they're gorgeous. Look at them. Beautiful. Tomatillas. Yeah, they like tower gardening. Look at that. All right, is that all the towers here? Yeah. I hope that gave you a good example of a bunch of things that are not looking so great. And that's okay. That's just part of it. And look at that. Doesn't even matter. Like, that literally does not even matter. This is what matters. And some things that are, you know, like the peas are on their way out, but also in some of these towers, but also some things that are doing amazing. And I'm going to show you the ones that are like so fresh and amazing. I just can't even get over these. This is the best time. This is when we're winning and what we always want our towers to look like. But the reality is they're not going to. They're going to peak out, but that's okay because that means they gave us food. The good thing about plants that look really bad is that means if we were doing our job and eating off of them, that means we got a ton of food before they did that. All right, my phone's giving me some trouble, so I'm gonna go through this quickly. I'm gonna do a separate video on these trellises, but I will link these below. It's just okay, my phone died, so I have to plug you guys in. So we're gonna go look at the 3 towers that are insane. My favorite project right now. Discuss growing melons, watermelons, winter squash that you can store up, pumpkins, so many things. Okra, we're pushing the limits on those. And then I have a trellis system. We'll do that next, but I thought I would plug you in and discuss the garage. So I'm about to move the celery tower in and rework it. I'm gonna move the other home tower in and plant lettuce, cilantro, cool weather crops in this garage. I have my pepper tower. I have a video coming out on this. This has been so fun and it will stay in here. It's got the aloe on it, and the aloe, like I showed you, hates being outside. So I need to move that one back in. So these are just happy here. And then we have the boom room to mushroom tent. So this was such a good reminder. I'm so glad I'm into this project. For one, I listened to this whole talk on women going through the stages of menopause. So perimenopause, you know, menopause is like a 10, 15 year stretch of changes. And it was all about women's brains. They finally started doing these studies, and parts of women's brains, like 60% of the women in this study lost brain function throughout this process because, and it's complicated, and I'm obviously not an expert, but basically when you're going through a cycle system and your body's doing that and creating all of those things to make a baby, it's speaking to your brain. And when it turns off, there's like parts of the brain that just aren't on anymore. It was so interesting to hear. So brain function's super important in keeping those neurological connections. And she was just, the doctor who did the study was just validating, like, when women feel like they can't complete sentences and they got all these things going on, it's actually neurological changes when they're going through that stage of life, which is just even more important, I think, to be putting foods in our bodies that support those systems. Lion's mane is amazing for brain function. It helps to regrow brain connections. I don't know the science behind it. I've listened to a ton of stuff. I'm not going to try and be an expert on that either. All I know is for Alzheimer's patients, for anybody who's struggling with brain function, or we want to have strong brain connections, strong mental capacity as we age, lion's mane is a huge part of that. So I'm growing lion's mane. I'll be growing a lot of it. I'll be making powders. It's also a highly knocked off product that, because it became so popular, like everything, there's lots of supplements out there and a lot of them are coming adulterated with all sorts of really bad stuff. So I'm just gonna grow my own, because why not? We love eating it, and I can make a powder and put it right in our coffee or take it as a supplement. There's lots of ways you can make tinctures. I'll show you guys that on some videos as we grow more food and grow more mushrooms. But this was such a great reminder, because I got this system and it took me a minute, and I'm gonna talk about that, to figure this out. And at first I was like, whoa, this isn't gonna work. And I know people do that with the towers too. People get a tower and it's kind of complicated, or things aren't going well, and it's like, whoa. And then you get the hang of it. And then that thing isn't such a big deal anymore, and you kind of learn how to master that thing, and we just keep going on. Well, that happened with this. And as content creators, we have what's called the curse of knowledge. We forget what we once didn't know. And I had a great example of this. A woman in Canada, I went to Canada for a speaking event, and she was saying she had powdery mildew and that my recipe wasn't working. And I was like, I know for one thing, my recipe for powdery mildew works, because we live in a temperate rainforest. And if I can keep squash alive for 5 months because of that, like, it works. And so we kept going back and forth, and I was like, what is going on? You know, what disconnect do we have that, because this thing isn't working for her, what could it be? And I was just trying to rack my brain, like, could it be this? Could it be that? Asking questions. Well, what it was is that she thought if you sprayed it, you just didn't have powdery mildew anymore, because that's probably how I worded it. But that's not the case. Powdery mildew is like aphids. If you have them, you're on a maintenance plan. This tower had aphids, and because I've been doing this for a while, I've got my systems, I was able to go from fully infested to totally under control. I can't even see an aphid on that tower right now. Does that mean they're not there? No, they're hiding. I'm just winning the battle. They're somewhere. I'm just staying on top of it to a point where I'm winning and they are not able to take over and overpopulate. That is the same with powdery mildew. And that was the part she didn't realize. Like, you're going to get powdery mildew. We're not trying to say you can spray it once and it's gone forever. It is something you're going to be managing. I manage mine right now every other day, because the cucumbers are just getting it, and we just live in a temperate rainforest. We are very prone to it here. It's not always every other day. As the cucumbers get stronger, my cucumbers are real prone to it here. The squash, I'm only having to manage it maybe every 4 or 5 days, so they're not as prone to it. So I have to go out there, cut off the worst infected leaves, spray the other ones, and manage it. That's the key. The recipe is to allow you to win the fight, because if you did nothing, you would have no squash. So it just made me realize, like, oh, okay, I didn't realize some people don't know, it's just that curse of knowledge. I forgot what I didn't know at one point. I assumed she knew it was a maintenance thing, and I worded it in a way that, it was like, we're going to get rid of it. And you are, but it's going to come right back. So this has been the same. So my thoughts on the boom room. When I first started this thing, there was puddles of water down here every day. And they're not anymore. It's wet right here. but it stopped putting off water. And a couple of things happened. First, I figured out there's a humidifier that you'll see it. It'll probably start pumping. It's pumping in a mist, and there is a humidity timer here, and I've got it set to match the mushrooms that are growing in there. And I realized, and then there's also a fan pulling out CO2 and keeping airflow, because mushrooms actually breathe oxygen and give off CO2 like we do. So that's why we have them in there. I've tried to grow these blocks without some sort of care system like this, and they don't do very well. This, I'm on my second flush, meaning the second time these have bloomed. And they are just incredible. I could never get this without adding that moisture in. So I do think having a system is very beneficial. This one just put off a lot of water, and I couldn't get it to stop. I have a shop vac here because I was coming out here and vacuuming it and checking it. Some of it was me. I just didn't know the flow to put it on, how high to put this on, how high to put the fan on. I've had to mess with that. Also, the garage door has been open because in the spring and in the fall, we keep the door open, and this is not temperature controlled in this garage. It just stays cool because of where we live. In the summer, I have to cool it. The mushrooms need the right temperature. The towers are gonna need the right temperature. So I have the AC on here, and the minute I turned the AC on, it did start to calibrate better. And I don't have that water anymore. I don't know the science behind why, but I just wanted to disclose that. The moisture, there's a drip tray in here, and I've had to vacuum that out. And there's water down in there. So we're putting water in, and we're not taking it out, and these aren't really drinking it. They're just soaking in the mist. So you're getting water. So I have a special vacuum shop vac that's here to clean that out on the bottom, and now it's not leaking anymore. But again, this is a big water system. It also smells like mushrooms. There's a lot of spores going on in here, and I'm about to have 9 more things growing. This is designed to grow a lot of mushrooms, so they smell like mushrooms. You know, mushrooms are incredible for putting off spores. I'm gonna put this guy away. You can see it's blowing. I follow another content creator, and he has his right in his living room. His house looks a little bit bigger, just looks like a different setup. I think it's just preference. Could you put it in your living room? Absolutely. I would recommend, if you get this, it's incredible. I would put it in a basement, or I would put it in a garage, personally. I also have an unfinished pantry, and I was thinking today, like, would I put this in there? I actually would put this in my unfinished pantry. Unfinished pantry meaning it doesn't have like drywall or anything like that. It's just basement that was unfinished, and that's where we keep our deep freeze and food storage and stuff. I would totally put this in there, no problem, and wouldn't think twice about it. Now, these systems are pretty effortless. I mean, this one's watering and growing. While I'm talking to you, I've done nothing to this tower in a very long time, except for harvest peppers. And this one, most of the time, I just come out here, check the water. Even when I had the water problem, all I was doing was vacuuming it up and then tweaking things, trying to figure out how to make it not do that, which I finally did. So I'll make more videos on this as I become an expert and figure it all out. But I love it. It was a great reminder that, you know, initially problems feel so big when you don't understand things, but just keep moving forward, because I kept moving forward, and instead of freaking out, calling this company and being like, I don't like this thing, it's leaking water everywhere, I just kept tweaking it, and I actually ordered 9 more things of mushroom, 9 more blocks. So I just resisted the urge to give up and go into this state of like, I can't do this, and instead said, not only are we going to do it, we're going to go big. We're going to go 9 more, and I'm going to figure out this problem. And that's what we have to do with the towers. And the payoff, friends, it's pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna show you guys my starts, and then we're gonna take a look at the 3 towers with the trellises. And I know this is a long video and a lot of rambling, and I appreciate you guys that watch these longer videos. It's a lot of pressure on this YouTube world because YouTube likes it to be entertaining and short and to the point. But I wanna help you grow food and understand how to grow food and not give up when things get hard and push through the challenges, because it's such an important time in history. I think if there ever was a time that we should be growing and taking back control of our food, it's right now, because of what's happening to our food systems, what's being put on our foods, the way that the whole industry is going into a modified lab model. I'm not okay with it. I want real food. And so I'm glad you guys are here. All that to say thank you. I'm glad you're here and willing to listen to my ramblings. I really do hope they bless you and equip you to grow your own food. That being said, my membership is officially launched and my free seed starting course is officially launched. You can look for the links to those below. If you purchased a tower from me in the past or you purchased one before August 1st, you get into the membership for free for life. Tower Garden made some changes on how they're doing things. So after August 1st, when you purchase the tower, you will get a limited membership to help you launch and have the greatest success. But then it'll be a paid subscription after that. And that's mainly just because of the amount of people I want to be able to serve and show up and help you guys. Those who use my link, I'm so grateful for you and want to support you on your journey. And if you didn't use my link, I want to support you on the journey too. But I need to be able to, in order to do that, I have to have like a special place to do that. The algorithm does not like when I sit and talk about how to grow a tomato. So in that membership, that's what I'm doing. I'm breaking down all of the basics and the stuff that's kind of boring and just trying to keep it to 5-minute videos. So they're nice and precise and to the point. Like, you want to grow tomatoes indoors? Here's your 7 lessons on how to do that. I'm uploading a course a month. I do lives in our Facebook group, and then I make myself available if you have questions. What's going on with my plant? You can post pictures and we can talk about it and just do this growing our own food thing together. It's focused on mastering aeroponic towers, but obviously I address recipes and juicing and sometimes mushrooms and sprouting and all the things in there as well. Let's go take a look at those towers. They are so fantastic. On our way out, I'm not gonna get into this too much, but here's all my starts. Always be starting new seeds. I will have an interval planting course in the membership to show you how to do this, but this is the key to not feeling discouraged when your towers look a hot mess like some of these do right now. Because we have a plan. This hot mess of a tower will look beautiful, just like this one, and fresh, and new life, and new potential in about 2 days when I find some time. All right, here are our 3 towers. This is a family tower unit product, family tower garden. Took a lot to get that out, which you get 3 flex towers with extensions. Love that. It's my favorite one because it's the best deal. And so I got these arbors. Is what they are on Amazon, and I'll link them below. Very affordable. And what I'm doing you don't have to do this part if you just had 1 tower or 2 towers and you just did, let's say, 2 vining plants on this one, 2 vining plants on that one. You don't have to do all this string stuff. You could let them just go up, dangle down. You could put this on a walkway, 2 towers, and make this a walkway. Wouldn't that be pretty? The string is because I'm actually not using this as an arbor. We're not going to walk through this. I am using this to maximize growth. So this string, as I add it, I will be adding more as I need it. I'm not quite sure if I need to attach it to the top yet. It'll just depend. That's why I don't have it all strung. I'm only stringing it as I need it right now. But I'm pulling these plants over to their spot. So this is a watermelon, and look, it's already blooming. And I'm going to see where it's growing, and at the level it's growing, that is where I'm tying the string. And I planned this out that way for all of these to have sort of their own row. Now, are they all going to intertwine and get out of control? Absolutely. I have 40 vining things on these towers. Actually, I think I have more than that now. It's a lot. I'm pushing the limits, but this is the goal. So this is a melon, an orange, like a cantaloupe, and it's going to get the top row. So I've got it tied to this string. This one's going to go all the way to the top once I get it wound on there. And so I'm just daily coming out here, trying to get them closer. We're almost there. Back tomorrow, we'll start to get wrapping around. And I'm also managing these really well. So like this leaf needs to go. Anything that's going to shade out other leaves, we don't need them because we have these leaves. And cucumbers and melons, not so much with the watermelons. Don't take too many off your watermelons. But with these squash type melons, they can handle you taking the biggest leaves and just keeping them pruned and managed. And that is what's going to keep us from losing them to squash bugs. So also on here, I have some new vines. That's spaghetti squash, some new watermelon peppers. I'm growing peppers on here. I'm growing more peppers, eggplant, more watermelon. This is not a vining watermelon. This is the sweet baby. It only grows like 3 feet. Some okra. And then I have some broccoli in here. This one's not going to make it. You can tell that one is done. It's weird and diseased and not going to do anything. But some of the broccoli is doing really well, like this one. And I don't think it's going to prematurely bolt. So I'm letting it stay on here. And then I don't know what I'm going to put there after. But you can see all the vines, they're just starting to take off. So much food here. And it repeats. It's winter squash. Look at all the cucumbers. Cucumbers, winter squash, acorn squash, butternut squash, watermelons. There's some tomatoes on here. And then in between that we have peppers, eggplant, okra, and then this broccoli that will come out pretty soon. Same thing over here. There's also pumpkin on here. I have one pumpkin plant. This one's got a lot of okra on it and a lot of broccoli. So hopefully the broccoli will make it. Peppers, eggplant. And you can just see how gorgeous. Everything's so young and beautiful. We don't have a lot of flaws yet, but look, powdery mildew. So I've been keeping my spray close. It's actually empty, but I spray it. There's some right there. I come and take bad leaves off. If you see things like this, something ate it. If you see this, if you look around and there's not poop from something like little black pellets or like it just whatever was here, took a few bites and moved on. Don't worry about things like that. Just keep moving forward. You can take those leaves off if you want. In the prime of the summer, we've got flea beetle damage here. You're just gonna have things that happen. And that's okay. So we just manage them, keep everything as high functioning, giving it airflow, managed as possible. When you're growing this many vines and squash, you need to stay on top of the squash bugs and the squash bug eggs. That will be your whole purpose in life over the summer if you want to do what I'm doing and grow squash and grow all these things. Keep your tomatoes as disease-free as possible, but don't worry if you lose to the disease because the tomatoes are already set. All we gotta do is wait for them to ripen and get your new seedlings ready to go so you can take out those plants after you get your last harvest off of them and have something else ready to take their place. And if you have a situation like I did where that broccoli didn't do well, it's okay because I had actually 7 other brassicas. I just got them in way too late and I knew I did, but I wanted to put them in anyway just to see. And the payoff was some of the broccoli is doing okay. Some of it bolted and I used all of that to make that green juice you saw me drinking. So it wasn't a waste. I still got a ton of incredible greens to put into my green juice. If those start to bolt prematurely, same thing. I get to put incredibly healthy broccoli greens into my diet. The greens are a superfood, just like probably more so than the actual broccoli head itself. And we get to put those in our diet, so there's no loss there. You can chop them up. I'd love to mix them with black-eyed peas and make them just like you would a collard green, or juice them, whatever. So there is no losses. But the loss is if that happens and you don't have new seeds ready to go, and then you're waiting and you're starting from scratch, and then you've got this huge 6-week gap before you have more food again. We definitely don't want to do that. Thank you for joining me with this very rambly, long tour of a lot of the things. That isn't everything happening. These are mulberry trees, by the way, full of mulberries. So there's a lot more going on here, but I do hope that these videos help you to grow your own food, help you to understand plants, empower you to grow your own food. Thanks for watching. God bless you. I will see you on the next video.